where am I now? That back in there is the Klanawa River. It starts with the K. You can Google it up. And I've taken some what's called the Klanawa shortcut, we used to call it, to get from Lake Couch into Banfield. So it's just a whole maze of remote logging roads. I haven't passed one vehicle. So anyway, here I am. That's the Klanawa. I don't know if that's called the Klanawa Valley behind me or not. I don't think so. But it's definitely called the Klanawa River. And there's a big herd of Roosevelt elk in there. Some really big bulls in there. And a couple of friends of mine that live in Banfield, they've kept tabs on them with trail cameras. And they actually got lucky and pulled the lottery ticket draw. And they've harvested a couple of them. So hopefully I'll see some of those on the way through. And I might even stop at the Klanawa River and see if I might catch a fish in there while I'm on my way to Banfield to visit my friends and check on the boat, my saltwater boat. For the meantime, I'm going to stop right here and see what else I could share with everybody along my travels. Alright, listen to this. Good morning. My buddy showed me a channel on YouTube a few weeks back and I've been listening to it since. Figured I'd share 2 stories and some thoughts. Story 1. Summer 2000. Parry Sound area, Ontario. When I was 9, my dad took me and a buddy camping that summer. My family liked to camp at Killbear Provincial Park, and we'd boat around the bays to go fishing. Across the one bay was a great public beach right beside an old CIL munitions property. The rock face said, "Danger, explosives," and there were no signs up. Oh, and there were signs up. Being curious kids, we decided to venture into the property to see what we could find. After hiking in a few kilometers and not finding much, we decided to head back. On the way back, we heard a loud thud. When we looked back, we saw a bowling ball-sized rock rolling and bouncing away from us on the path. We were on flat ground, medium thick deciduous bush, and heard no other sounds other than the rock. We both looked at each other, hairs up on both our necks, and we ran back to the beach. We knew it wasn't a person or a black bear, but whatever was there was giving us a polite notice that it was time to leave. Yeah, I'd probably do it. Alaska, fall 2018. My unit was up there training with the Americans in one of their exercises. My platoon was doing a nighttime insertion on foot to hit a target. I was a nav/point man on our insert and took us up a sheer slope up to a large patch of pine/tall grass. Pines were thick, 8 to 10 feet tall. Walking through the grass, skirting the pines, I could hear a huffing to our left. A platoon moving by foot is loud, but up front it's still fairly quiet. At first, I thought maybe a bear, but my gut told me bears wouldn't hang around watching 30 dudes walk past at night, and the patch of pine this thing was in would tremble every so often. On my way past, I gave it a nod and kept going. I think we had the mutual understanding of staying out of each other's way. Now my thoughts on things. I think these things are as diverse as humans. They all look different depending on region, but they are definitely a conscious species like humans. I have a feeling this is what they found in a cave down in Kandahar back in 2001. Also, just a different version of Sasquatch. The Scandinavians call the Jotnar and treat them less as a myth and more like a greater species of human. Alright. Curtis, thanks for the email, man. I appreciate you took the time out to punch that out and send it in to share with all of us. And Scandinavians, that's where my blood comes from, Norway. Our family tree. I have my dad's aunt in Norway, Oslo, traced our family tree back to 700 before Christ or something. Long history. But anyway, you know, one thing about these beings is, you know, what keeps coming up fairly often is a lot of people say they're the keeper of the woods. They're the watchers of the forest, the keeper of the forest. Now, I don't know if you can see what's going on behind me here, but on Vancouver Island, I remember back in the 80s or 90s, on the cover of Time magazine, Vancouver Island was deemed the #1 worst example in the world of clear-cut logging. And so when I say what I'm about to say, don't take it as insulting or offensive to anybody, but if you're just coming at things from looking at it from common point sense of view, from absolute neutral ground, and you look and you hear a bunch of people over here say these things are the keepers of the forest, and then I turn around and look behind me, and then I think to myself, well, if that's their title and their job description, it's an epic fail on their part, wouldn't you say? Because I would think that the keepers, the quote, keepers of the forest, would keep the forest and the face of the planet healthy and safe. So, would I, just speaking from being a casual observer, if I was just sitting at the round table of knowledge looking for information from all different directions, I'm thinking if that's what they are, they're failing. And they failed. Right? Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong. Now, another thing that I'm possibly going to... I want to deliver this, kind of tiptoe around it in a way because people get offended so frickin' easy, it's ridiculous. But again, what I'd like to keep everybody envisioning is when you come to this channel and everyone's discussing, I'd like everybody to just picture it as a great big round table of good, honest people. And it's a table where everybody comes to discuss their ideas around and figure shit out. And I'm encouraging you to not come to this table like you're going to war. Okay, because if you are, you could be completely missed it. It's run right over your head and you shouldn't even be here. Don't come to this conversation like you're coming into war, because it's not a war. This is a round table of support, encouragement, and honest shared knowledge with each other. Okay? I'm just getting that out there before I'm about to say what I'm about to say. Okay? Now take what I'm about to say is just words from somebody who's sitting on a fence, watching the whole shit show go on, and listening to every single person say what they have to say, and input when it comes to this topic and many others. Now, I get emails literally by the hundreds from people telling me the Nephilim story, the story of the Bible. We get dozens of comments in the comment section, dozens and dozens of emails saying, it's all in the Bible, all you have to do is read the Bible. Alright? All you have to do is accept the name of God, Lord Jesus Christ, on and on and on. Multiple times, hundreds of times, thousands of times. And what I'm commonly hearing people is, it's all in the Bible. It's all right there in the Bible. You just got to read the Bible. Now, what I'm asking an innocent, honest question. Don't get offended and don't run away thinking you're being insulted or offended in any way. This is just questions and answers times at the round table. Now, my question is if all of the answers are in the Bible and everything's in the Bible and you just have to put faith in the Bible. Okay, now I'm looking at the planet. I am seeing for myself that I would be safe to say that at this point in time, societies around the world and across the board are possibly at their darkest of times right now. Maybe. Possibly. Alright? That's just from my observations of watching the different countries around the globe, how they're interacting with each other, what they're doing to each other, what's being done to each other, what's happening to all of our societies today across the board. And I'm seeing the absolute darkest of times. I've seen a lot of evil go down. There's a lot of very, very, very bad people in power. And I don't see any change coming to that anytime soon. So my question would be to the people who lay faith in the Bible and just read the Bible, it's all in the Bible. Well, if everything was right there and it was so simple, then how come nothing's changing? That's my honest question. Why is nothing changing? There's literally, possibly, hundreds of millions of people who read and put their faith in the Bible. And I know many of them, many of my friends. And I just love them and respect them, and I will protect them in their life. But my honest question is, why is nothing changing for the better? Why is that? If hundreds of millions of people are non-stop studying and reading the Bible, it's all in the Bible, follow the Bible, study your scriptures, why are we today at the present time in the darkest, potentially at the darkest of times? Why isn't that doing anything? Why is nothing changing for the better then? My honest question. Now, see if I get time. I'm going to rip out another one. I don't want to be too late to where I'm going. Anybody hear that? don't know what that was, but it was loud. Oh well, let's see if anything. I don't know what that was. It was loud. Maybe a tree falling down. Big one, a big tree. Whatever. Read one more. I'm gonna keep going. Hi Steve, been watching videos for a little over a year now. Really appreciate what you're doing for folks having these experiences. Your show has helped me personally with getting back into the woods again. Well, that's good, man. That's good news. That's what it's supposed to be doing, right? I used to spend a lot of time hunting and fishing. I don't have a problem wrapping my head around this, for I have been interested in them since I was 7. At that age is when I first viewed the Patterson-Gimlin film at our local theater here back in 1971. I've always been open-minded. Anyway, I had my first experience back in 1980 when I was 16. I didn't see it exactly because it was dark out and the woods were only lit by ambient moonlight. I was walking along a trail in the dark, making my way back to camp where my 2 friends were waiting for me. Like a dunce, I had forgotten my flashlight in the car and decided not to go back for it, so I pushed on in the dark. I had eagle eyes then and was able to navigate the trail, which I knew like the back of my hand. As I proceeded along, I heard my left foot falls of what sounded like I was being paralleled by a person. I thought, who could be out there in the pitch dark woods walking around at 3 a.m. with no flashlight? But here I was doing the very thing. Anyway, this thing I noticed would stop when I stopped and move when I moved. I was becoming nervous and the fear started welling up in me. So as I walked along the trail, the footsteps kept pace with me and angling closer to me as I moved. I guesstimate that it was 25 to 30 yards from me when this started and ended up stepping onto the trail right in front of me. I stopped dead in my tracks when this happened. Peering into the dark, I could see the darker outline of this creature, and it was towering over me, no more than 7 or 8 feet away. I didn't smell anything like the report, nor did it growl or make any sound while it stood blocking the trail. I knew if I'd taken 2 more steps, I would have walked straight into this thing. I knew it wasn't a bear. I'd already went through every possible animal it could be in my mind, for I was no stranger to all the animals that I knew were native to these woods. Even thought it might be the guys trying to play a prank on me, but I knew that wasn't the case here. So after standing there for what seemed like 20 minutes, was more like 20 seconds, finally I found my courage and was determined to make it back to camp. I turned 90 degrees to my right and went around the creature, meaning I walked and didn't run as calm as I could. I made it to the lake shore, which was 25 yards from the trail. I then followed the shoreline up and down over the boulders and debris, stopping from time to time to see if it was following me. I never heard it. I got the feeling it was still up on the trail just watching me and probably thinking, this one doesn't run away screaming like the other ones, LOL. Probably scratching its head, trying to figure out this nut. Anyway, I made it back to camp where I found my buddies asleep. I can tell you that I dove into that tent with them and when asked, "What's up?" I replied with silence. Didn't talk about it to no one for a long time, and when I did, I was met with the usual response people give, "Yeah, right." So I kept it to myself. I have other encounters with these beings. Seen a family of 3 walk in front of my window one night. The biggest one had to have been over 10 feet tall. I know because I measured the height from the ground to the bottom of the windowsill, and it was 9 feet. I had bought a townhome since then and moved to the other side of town. Didn't think I would see any here, for I live in a very suburban neighborhood. Houses all around me, and yet just 5 years ago, I was within 30 feet. of a family of 4 Sasquatch. The encounter happened in mid-August 2015 around dusk. The male had what looked like a baby or adolescent on his shoulders, peering over its head, and there were 2 more laying on their bellies, peering over a railroad tie at me. Needless to say, I didn't stay there long. This I viewed off my back porch. I was amazed that here were these creatures in a very residential neighborhood. but I've long suspected they were coming into neighborhoods searching for food. Wherever there is some cover or corridor of woods threading through a neighborhood, they will use it. There are opportunities, I don't know if you've heard this, but I've heard of a report where someone had witnessed them catching trains and riding between the cars. It doesn't surprise me if this is so. Anyway, before I close, one more item. I've had some serious interactions with them. I don't leave food for them. I think that is asking for trouble. I don't think these are cute, fuzzy, warm creatures that one can just assume will be tamed. No. But I had laid out three shot glass-sized stones on a retaining wall by my back porch. 2 or 3 days later, I noticed a stone had been moved. Sometimes I will find a stone that was added to what I had, and looking close at the new stone, I noticed it wasn't from around here. Anyway, I will close for now by saying to you, Steve, thanks again for giving the people who've had these experiences an open ear and an understanding, and more importantly, reporting the truth about what's going on. Sincerely, Patrick Barry, West Virginia native. All right, Patrick, thanks for that email, man. And you're not alone, right? Welcome to the Club of No Return. I'm sure you've been there for a while now, but there's no shortage of people reporting exactly what you have in places where you would think these beings don't frequent, and that is a fact. It's a hard fact. But anyway, I'm gonna get my butt out of here. Keep looking behind me and down the hill for some weird reason. I don't know why. I'll be straight up honest, the hairs of my legs start standing up there for a couple minutes when I first started reading this email, but whatever. I don't know what the hell that sound was. It's almost like thunder. Not quite, because if it was thunder, it was just a short boom. It's a weird sound. Whatever. It is what it is. It'll probably happen again once the camera's off, right? Can hear a frog. But anyway, I gotta get out of here. Stand here acting like a dumbass. But don't forget, if you want something you want to share with everybody, you got some knowledge or experience you want to get off your chest, you can email it to sharemystory@howtohunt.com or tellmystory@howtohunt.com, and we'll get to it. Hopefully I catch a fish here pretty quick. What sucks about this? Not much.